Hi everybody, today I'm dressed as Mr. Fred Rogers. So welcome to my neighborhood. You may be wondering why. Well, it is the week of Halloween, but also today we're gonna have a discussion about children's entertainment. As far as this modern era goes, children's entertainment is in a very dark place. Kids are watching things that are super fast-paced, complex, convoluted. They're watching violent content. They're watching content that discusses things like gender and sexuality, that has forced diversity. All in all, kids are watching things that kids should not be seeing. Today I'm paying homage to one of my favorite people to have ever graced this earth, Mr. Fred Rogers of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. So today we're going to talk about everything that's happening in modern children's entertainment and compare that with the words and wisdom of Mr. Rogers and of course his lifelong project, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Why? Because Mr. Rogers, I feel, is a man who truly understood children, how to speak to them, how to entertain them, and how to educate them. And we have completely lost the plot when it comes to all of those things. So let's talk about him. Guys, before we get into today's video, please like and subscribe. And today we're going to be talking about Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, among other things. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, it is a somewhat unassuming children's show that follows Mr. Fred Rogers as he welcomes you to his neighborhood with a bunch of little fun characters and people that he interacts with throughout the show. Now, throughout the duration of the show, he has conversations, and very pivotal ones that children need to have, about things like family, love, trust, anger, fear, what we do when we feel scared, how we build friendships, how we treat other people, how we deal with conflict, how we slow down and take deep breaths when we're living life. Just so much great wisdom throughout the entirety of this show. And when you compare Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood with where we're at now with children's entertainment, you're going to see that we have a huge problem. So today we're going to do that. And we're going to start off with a conversation about the fast-paced nature of children's entertainment. You may or may not have heard of a show called CoComelon. It is one of, if not the most popular children's show right now. And there are children of very young ages watching this show. Now, I'm going to show you a clip from CoComelon, and I want you to think about not only the subject matter of the clip, but how often the scene is changing and the colors are flipping throughout this clip.
Thing that we know about you, you love to get up and dance. How about you break out those moves for your two biggest fans?
Now that clip may actually seem like nothing, but we're going to get to the two dads and the boy wearing a dress in just a moment later in the video. But think about how often the scene in the background is changing in that clip. The child is constantly going to be seeing something new happening on screen virtually within seconds. And somebody has actually gone through CoComelon's content and looked through it and found that there are some instances where every 2 to 3 seconds, the scene in the background is changing as the child is watching the show, which is absolutely insane if you think about it, especially when we compare it to Mr. Rogers. Now, before we get to the Mr. Rogers clip, I want to show you a conclusion that was drawn from a study on showing children fast-paced entertainment. They write here, just 9 minutes of viewing a fast-paced television cartoon had immediate negative effects on 4-year-olds' executive function. Parents should be aware that fast-paced television shows could at least temporarily impair young children's executive function. And executive function is essentially mental skills used to sort of control and regulate virtually everything in life. It's things like organization, planning, your general attention span. So think about the amount of fast-paced children's content that children are watching right now, even outside of the likes of CoComelon, and how that's going to affect their general mental function over time. Now, with that being said, let's play the intro to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And I'm actually going to just slow him down there and just talk about this while this continues to play. You can see these sort of slow single shots that just take you through the course of entering this neighborhood, of entering Mr. Rogers' house. And he sort of slowly gingerly gets ready in front of the camera and sits down with children to sort of start his day. He slowly puts on his jacket, he slowly gets on his shoes, he ties them up, and he welcomes you to the neighborhood. And Mr. Rogers was very intentional about taking his time with children and having them see something that was true to life, rather than watching this fast-paced, scene-changing, every 2-3 second cartoon, or even him talking, where a child could get overwhelmed and have their mental capacity essentially fried. He always took his time doing things. He always took his time in speaking. And sometimes on the show, he would just sit and allow the children to take in what was happening around them and on the screen in silence. He would feed his fish and just watch as the fish ate the food. And in this little book titled The World According to Mr. Rogers, which has some of his most important quotes in philosophies, he writes, "How many times have you noticed that it's the little quiet moments in the midst of life that seem to give the rest extra special meaning?" Now, how often do you feel children are getting quiet moments in their television entertainment these days? It's not happening often at all. So next time you see kids TV, next time you are placing entertainment in front of your kids, keep an eye out for just how fast-paced everything is moving and think about whether or not there's a better solution to entertaining children. And I've even started to notice this in the entertainment that I'm consuming. So much of it is so quick and fast-paced, and then you find yourself closing out of it and entering back into real life, and the actual slowness, the stillness of reality can be quite jarring. If it's taking place in my mind, and I'm sure so many others, imagine what we're doing to children with what we are entertaining them with. That's why you're seeing these iPad kids who are absolutely freaking out and going on insane temper tantrums every single time they have any bit of technology removed from their general vicinity. It's insane.
Kids getting out of control.
And on top of the fast-paced nature of children's entertainment, some of it is so violent. I went ahead and looked on Google for some of the most recent children's projects, television shows, and movies that have been put out. And I decided to look through the trailers and some of the marketing materials from these entertainment pieces. And there's so much violence just strewn throughout all of them. I'm going to show you a quick compilation of just the violent scenes that I found in these trailers within, 5 to 10 minutes of searching online.
Your worst idea is what you did with your ears.
Don't tell the social worker I like jumping out a window!
One's better than listening to you!
Go to your room!
I don't eat in my room!
And of course, I think it's the instinct for many of us to think that this is nothing. It's just something that a child is seeing for a second. It's not necessarily an endorsement of violence. They're not telling children that violence is good, but children absorb everything, and they also are mimickers by nature. So every little bit of violence that a child sees is going to impact them in some way. And I'd argue it's probably going to be more negative than positive. But I don't want to speak about this. Let's turn to Mr. Rogers and his take on scary television for children.
I was just thinking, did you ever hear loud, scary sounds on television? Well, some television programs are loud and scary, with people shooting and hitting other people. You know, you can do something about that. When you see scary television, you can turn it off. And when you do turn it off, that will show that you're the strongest of them all. It takes a very strong person to be able to turn off scary TV. That's one of the ways you'll be able to tell that you're really growing. You're learning so many important things, and I'm so proud of you.
I mean, come on, how spot on was that? And you can tell that he's somebody who knows how to speak to children and knows how to embolden them to make the right decision and to let them know that the right decision is theirs to make and is a point of growth for them and their life. And how often are we now just senselessly putting children in front of a TV and having them watch things that we may not deem to be that violent, but are extremely violent if you truly think about them? Let me go and replay that compilation that I put together for you and think about your inner child, or think about who you were as a child and seeing something that is that jarring and that violent.
Your worst idea is what you did with your ears.
Don't tell the social worker I like jumping out a window!
One's better than listening to you!
Go to your room!
I don't eat in my room!
We are an amalgamation of everything that we experience, see, our environment, the nature, and the nurture. And we can nurture children in the direction of a far less violent future when we don't show them as much violence as we are showing them now. And again, we'll go back to Mr. Rogers. Even if he was going to have a conversation about violence on his show, he would urge the children to actually go and grab a parent or parental figure to watch the show with him. Here's an episode from 1981 where he wants to discuss gun violence with children.
This program is not for young children to watch alone. When children see and hear about frightening things, it's best for them to have an adult close by, somebody who loves them and can put their arm around them. So please get a grown-up that you love to watch this program with you, because we're going to talk about some sad and scary things.
A lot of kids recently, I think, have just been consuming all of this media without their parents' supervision, without their parents being beside them to consume it. And now parents are getting a wake-up call because they're finding out what their kids are actually watching and finding out it's concerning. We've seen that with the recent boycott of Netflix, as parents suddenly found out that the children's programming that their kids were watching was advising them to take on non-binary identities, telling them to switch their pronouns from she, her, and he, him to they, them, and essentially talking about different sexualities and transgender lifestyles. I'm going to show you a compilation of what exists in these children's shows.
How about you break out those moves for your two biggest fans?
I know I'm safe when I'm with my friends or other non-binary people.
Non-binary?
People who aren't female or male. Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have assumed.
Nightshade's pronouns are they, them.
He or she just doesn't fit who I am.
My apologies. Please switch there, please.
I'm trans, Norma. And everyone at school knows, and everyone at home knows. And being here, it's like a whole new place.
It's Cherry Chip reporting from the wedding of the year. Everyone's favorite karate instructor, Sensei Dave, will be marrying mixed martial arts champion Jiu-Jitsu Joe.
He's the undisputed champion of my heart.
Everything okay, Fred?
Oh, the last time I saw my grandma, I used a different name and pronouns.
Okay, so there you have it. And regardless of how you feel about these political issues, I think we can all agree that these are not conversations for children. And if they are not conversations that should be had in this light. It's pretty crazy to think that kids are being sat in front of TVs and this is what they're taking in. And where kids want to feel special and accepted and new and different, they're being given those options as non-binary identities and transgender identities and new pronouns, which I can imagine many a kid is going to want to grasp onto as a means of having themselves stand out and feel special. Children want to feel special. They want to feel loved. They want to feel accepted. And sometimes they want to feel fancy, which will be a nod to the Mr. Rogers clip we're about to get into. And you can present options for kids to feel this way by literally telling them that they are special, by telling them that you love them, by giving them somebody to trust, and by telling them that they are fancy. Or you could present them with non-binary pronouns and tell them that's a way to achieve that goal. Mr. Rogers did it one way, and I'll have you guess which way that is. You won't have to guess for long because here's the clip.
Everybody's fancy, everybody's fine. Your body's fancy, and so is mine. Boys are boys from the beginning. If you were born a boy, you stay a boy. Girls are girls right from the start. If you were born a girl, you stay a girl and grow up to be a lady. Everybody's fancy, everybody's fine. Your body's fancy, and so is mine. Only girls can be the mommies. Only boys can be the daddies. Yes, sir. Everybody's fancy, everybody's fine. Your body's fancy, and so is mine. I think you're a special person, and I like your ins and outsides. Everybody's fancy, everybody's fine. Your body's fancy, and so is mine.
And there you go, a solid and steady take on all of the gender confusion that a kid could be experiencing that really boils down to everybody's fancy and everybody's fine. Your body's fancy and so is mine. And I think he had this brilliant way of taking an issue that could be quite complex and would feel especially complex for a child. And he really boiled it down to simple terms and simple means. And he just placed it in front of children. And it's so easily digestible, far more digestible than last time when I saw my grandparents. I had different pronouns than the one I had before. And I'm worried if they're going to accept me. That is way, way, way too much for a child to take in. Meanwhile, he's saying boys are boys. Girls are girls. Everybody's fancy. You're still special. I still love you. You're still a great person inside and out, or you could be. And that's a wonderful thing. Point blank, period. He even addressed this while being interviewed on The Tonight Show, which I found fascinating.
Do you ever discuss, now we were discussing sex when we did the takeoff on your show. Mm-hmm. Are they too young for that? Do you ever get into?
That's where they learn the differences. Yeah. But there's a song called Everybody's Fancy. Right. That I sing. Some are fancy on the outside, some are fancy on the inside. Everybody's fancy, everybody's fine. Your body's fancy, and so is mine. But the second verse is very important.
Now, what's the second verse?
Boys are boys from the beginning. Girls are girls right from the start. Everybody's fancy, everybody's fine, your body's fancy, and so is mine. Because sometimes children think that they might change. They might have to change after a while. And, we laugh about that now, but it's because we had that concern when we were little.
Yeah, because you're really not sure, and you thought maybe you'd become a girl, or the girl would become a boy, right?
Exactly.
And it happens frequently out here. Sometimes.
And there you have it. There's the clip. And it's so interesting because I think so often when Mr. Rogers is in adult spaces or he's addressing adults, there is this tendency to laugh or snicker at some of the things that he's saying, or maybe they're being made uncomfortable by what he's saying. But he's really getting down to the truth of the matters in which children are concerned with, and really all people are concerned with. And to be able to do that with simplicity is just an entirely different skill to develop. And I think the only reason he's able to have that skill is because he is so attached to his inner child. He really understands the essence of childhood and how important it is to speak to children about things in certain ways. Whereas today, the people in the writer's room for children's shows seem to be more obsessed with gender and sexuality and diversity, equity, inclusion than they do about what children actually need to hear and what children actually need. I think they are so detached from their inner child that now they are just adults with political messages and agendas who are trying to inject those into children's entertainment and programming. They're more concerned with their diversity and inclusion quotas than they are with what children need. They're just going to shove as many black and brown people into these programs as possible with as many identities as possible and open Pandora's box when it comes to these different conversations about oppression and sexuality and intersectionality, rather than looking at a child's level and wondering how we have these different discussions. Meanwhile, Fred Rogers made real ground when it came to the subject matter of racism by simply doing this on his show.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you. How you doing?
Fine. How are you today?
Fine.
My feet were tired, so I thought I'd just soak them for a while in this water.
Does it make them feel better?
It does. Would you like to try?
Sure.
That episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood sparked a lot of controversy because Mr. Rogers, a white man, was in a pool, kiddie pool, that is, with a black man sharing the water at the same time. In times of just peak racial animosity in this country, oftentimes there was bleach poured into pools where black people were swimming. So you can sort of juxtapose that with the image that we're getting in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood of him having his feet in the same water as a black man. And it's a simple gesture like that that really expands the mind and opens people up to the idea of acceptance of people who may look or think differently than we do. You don't have to sit and have an in-depth discussion about oppression and race and the intersectionality of these matters. You could simply put your feet in the pool with somebody of a different skin color. And that is not to say that Mr. Rogers did not tackle these different topics in his own way on his show in different episodes. It's just to say that if he could strip something down to the simple mechanism of what it actually is, he would do exactly that. There are so many different directions we could go in this video, but I just want to sort of land the plane by saying again that Mr. Rogers had a deep attachment to childhood. He showed that in his day-to-day work on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He showed that in characters like Daniel the Tiger, which clearly had a deep connection to, I think, not only his own childhood, but the childhood of so many who may have felt anxiety or fear or sadness on any given day.
Maybe I could talk about clocks and loving.
And Daniel Tiger had all of those emotions harnessed in himself and shown to American children to tackle and to talk about. We also saw it with characters like King Friday. And funnily enough, we're talking about, scary moments in life and showing children things that are violent or that can evoke fear. Mr. Rogers labeled Friday the 13th as King Friday's birthday because he wanted children to celebrate Friday the 13th with happy feelings rather than the sort of superstitious and spooky feelings that Friday the 13th can so often be accompanied with.
His name was King Friday the 13th. We just thought that was fun because so many people are so superstitious about Friday the 13th that we thought, let's start children out thinking that Friday the 13th is a fun day.
So with so many little details, he was thinking about how children soak things in and how it's going to be expressed within their lives. And instead of standing, as this tall man, he brought himself down to the level of children to try to see things through their eyes on any given topic. And before we close out with some very, I think, rich and thought-provoking thoughts from Mr. Rogers in his little book here, I want to turn to a clip of him on the Oprah Winfrey Show talking about how we parent children and how we treat them.
What do you think is the biggest mistakes parents make in raising their children?
Not to remember their own childhood.
Yeah.
I think that the best thing that we can do is to think about what it was like for us and know what our children are going through.
But you know what? It's so hard once you get to be a parent. You always say, I will never do this. When your mother's doing it to you or your father's doing it to you, you say, I will never do this to my child. And then you get to our age and you forget what it was like to be this size. You really do forget.
But those children can help re-evoke what it was like. And that's why when you're a parent, you have a new chance to grow.
We spend so much of our adulthood losing our childhood, losing our sense of childlike wonder, losing our sense of childlike interpretation of the things that we're taking on. And when we come to impact other generations and young people, if we've lost that, we've lost our means of communicating with them. And with that, we will close out with two quotes from Mr. Fred Rogers as we finish paying homage to him in this video. He writes, "Please think of the children first. If you ever have anything to do with their entertainment, their food, their toys, their custody, their day or night care, their health care, their education, listen to the children, learn about them, learn from them, think of the children first." Then he writes, "One of the greatest dignities of humankind is that each successive generation is invested in the welfare of each new generation." So, thank you so much, Fred Rogers. And I'm happy to play out some of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood this Halloween. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about it. If you disagree with anything I said in this video or anything that Fred Rogers said in this video, do get out, but do so respectfully. I encourage healthy debate on this channel. And if you like this video, like, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every single time I post a video for you guys, which is just about every day. And I will see you guys next time.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.